Today we're going to be talking about InterMapper and how it can help you monitor and manage your network. InterMapper is a division of Help Systems. Just a little background. Help Systems has a number of product lines. We do a lot of system automation, system monitoring. We have some security tools, some business intelligence tools. We have a whole suite of products that you can use to manage your systems and your networks. And InterMapper is our only network monitor, and it's one of our favorite little tools. So InterMapper does three things really well, I think, when you look at it. It will monitor all the devices on your network, and you can set different thresholds so you can be notified as they hit different thresholds. So it does monitoring, it does mapping, and it does alerting. And the mapping is pretty much what sets it apart from a lot of the competitors that we have out there. We give you a great, unique graphical view of your network and the status of all the devices and interfaces that's keeping your network up and running. InterMapper does real-time monitoring. You can set polling at whatever level, whatever interval that you would like it to be at. And that can be at a default level by map, or it can be by each individual device. We also will monitor the, we have a net flow capability to monitor the flow data that's going through your switches and routers. And so you can see who's using your bandwidth as well as the status of all the devices. InterMapper is easy to set up and get running. And then you can set alerts based on different thresholds that you might have. So we always have kind of an escalation from a warning to an alarm to a system that might be down. I was talking to a customer a few weeks ago, and we were doing a demo and asking them what they were doing now for network monitoring, and he said that they were getting yelled at. So I hope that you're not in the same boat that he is, and you get notified before your network starts to have big problems. A couple little housekeeping things. I see we've had a number of people join us just now. If you have any questions, you can send a chat message over on the right-hand side of the screen. Happy to answer your questions. If I don't have the answer, I know people that do. Also, if you'd like to dial in using the phone, I've got the number there in the chat window as well. And you can do that, and I'll unmute phones as we get into the presentation. So let's take a look at some examples of some of the maps that we've gotten from some of our customers. Our corporate office is located in Minnesota, right outside of Minneapolis, and this is Goldie Gopher, the University of Minnesota mascot, and the university is a customer of InterMapper. And so what you're looking at here is a map of the campus. It crosses the river, and the river's probably up here in the pink part by now. It's kind of high this time of year. But as you can see, we've got various switches laid out on this map, and they're all good and green. And so things are running smoothly. But over here you can see we've got a device that's red. And what that means is that it's met some type of a threshold, throwing out some type of an error. And so it's very easy to see where your problems are on your map using InterMapper. Another use, you can use any JPEG or PNG file as a background. And here's another good idea that one of our customers had. This is a computer lab at a school. InterMapper was started years ago, back in the 90s, at Dartmouth College. And so we have a lot of educational customers. That's probably our biggest chunk of customers between education and government. And this is a computer lab. And you can see all the desktops, all the endpoints are nice and green. But over in the corner here, I've got a printer that's down, and in the back of the room, too, I've got a couple of devices that are having some issues. And so a technician could take this map and walk right into the room and walk right up to where that problem is, where that problem device is. InterMapper has an interface with Google Earth. And so what you can do is you can put some benchmark latitude and longitude markers on your map and then plot them on a Google Earth map. This is a customer that's a wireless ISP, and as you can see, all the wireless access points are laid out on this map. This is another great use of maps, I think. This is a university over in England, and here is their data center all laid out on a grid, and you can see all the racks in that data center, and everything is up in green, and that's all good. And if I click on any one of these to go into the default, into the detail, it will show me each of those racks, and it's going to show me all the devices and all the cards that are plugged into that to that rack. So if I did have some kind of a problem here, it'd be very easy to find it and drill in and see what the problem is. This is another one of theirs that I stole. They're monitoring all of the locks on a lot of the buildings in there across the campus. And so they've created a map with just those lock statuses on there. And you can see most of them are all green and good. And if I drill into one of these buildings, it will take me into the actual locks on all the doors and show me the status of those as well. So you can monitor just about anything you can think of with InterMapper. So besides your regular network equipment, switches and routers, etc., many of our customers have environmental sensors that they're using. Anything that's got that's configurable with S&M key, we can gather that information. So we've got a couple school districts, or a school district in Arizona that was having some issues with their power, and some of their outlying schools would lose power. They wouldn't be aware of it right away, and the freezers would start to defrost. He bought some cheap little environmental sensors, put those in the freezers and the refrigerators, and now they are notified if the temperature starts to rise in any of those devices. Same thing in a computer room. Printers and servers, telecommunications, UPS devices. You want to be able to count on those being available if you do need to go over to your UPS system. And we can also monitor applications that are running on your servers. This is an example of monitoring net flow data that's going through your switches. So net flow, S flow or J flow, we are compatible with. You can configure an exporter on your managed switch or router and export that data to InterMapper flows, and now I can see who's using my bandwidth. So you can see any spikes in usage, and then you can drill in down here. We've got the top talkers. If I drill into this chart, it's going to highlight down here the IP address and the user that's causing that traffic. So we do mapping, monitoring, and then alerting. So we have a number of different options that you can use for notifying people who needs to know if there's a problem. We can send email or text messages. We do have an interface with Splunk. We've got a free Splunk app that you can download from the Splunk website. And what you can do is you can export all of your event information, all your event data from InterMapper to Splunk, and then use your Splunk logs for reporting, drilling down to get additional information as well. We can send traps. We'll work with other enterprise monitors as well. We've got customers that use multiple monitors. They will maybe use InterMapper for a certain section, and they love the mapping, and so they want to get that nice view, and then they might send traps up to another monitor as well. And you can actually run a command. So if I do have a service maybe on one of my Windows servers that I'm monitoring, and I want to make sure that that service is up, if it goes down, InterMapper is going to alert, and I can run a command to try to restart that service. You can also set up alerting based on your on-call schedule, who needs to be notified of what. So what InterMapper does, I think, is it makes it really easy to get up and running because we set up a lot of defaults to begin with, and then you can customize that to exactly what it is that you need. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at InterMapper. We've had a couple other people join us, so I'm going to make a couple of announcements. Oh, we've got our website up here. A couple of things. If you put your cursor up at the top of the screen and you click on that chat icon, that will bring up the chat window. And if you want to send a message in the chat, go ahead and type it in next to that send button, and you can send your questions to all participants or to the host or presenter, which is me. Also, the number is here, so if you do want to dial in, I think when you come into the event, you come in by default on your speakers on your PC, but if you would like to dial in, here's the number that you can dial in with, and then this is the access code. And so I'll keep an eye on if anybody's dialing in, and open up your phone line if you need to. So Housekeeping. So here's a map. So this is a live map of part of our network here at corporate. And we're looking at a couple different things. We can see a number of different servers that are up. Some of these have alarms based on the color of the device. That's the type of alarm that is being set. And we'll go and take a look at those in a minute. You can also see the traffic going across the interfaces. This is actually our mail server, and you can see we've got some redundant routes to that server. I can go in and take a look at a chart. Here I can see the actual utilization for that interface, and I'm monitoring that. Down here at the bottom, you can see our polling interval is every 30 seconds, and that's the default. So we're monitoring the traffic across that interface every 30 seconds as well. If it hits a certain threshold, it's going to alert, but also you can keep an eye on it, put that up on the big screen if you like. You can create kind of a master map and then have some sub-maps. So our customers will create maps based on all different types of things. Location, business unit, server type. As you can see, we have a map. One of my examples was all the locks. And so you can put anything on the map you want and organize. So what we've got is kind of this master, and then we've got two other sites here. We've got our Chicago site and our Seattle, and I want to take a look and see what's causing the Seattle or this Chicago one to flash. So here we have the layout of our network over in our Chicago office, not very big as you can see. And what I've got here is a device that's down. So this is the name of the server, and right now it's down, and it's been down since earlier this morning. What I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to acknowledge that. And I can put a note on here. And what that will do is it will stop the flashing and the red, and it puts this check mark there. And now if anybody else comes in to take a look at the status, they're going to see that this error, this device is still down, but it was acknowledged by me, and this is my IP address, and this is the note that I put on there. So you can use that to kind of communicate with the other system administrators or network administrators about issues that you're having. If I right-click on any one of these guys, I've got a whole list of options that I can do at the device level. So I can look at the status, and we'll take a look at a number of these windows up here. But let's take a look at the status of this server. So this is my mail server. It's our Exchange server. The IP address we've got, the status for this is up, thank goodness. And the probe that we're using on this device is we're using a probe group. That means that we're monitoring for more than one type of probe. When you put devices on a map, or when InterMapper goes out to try to discover the IP addresses on a map, it uses SNMP. And so what it does, and I'll create a map before we're done here so you can see how that's done. So we send out an SNMP GET request to all the IP addresses in that subnet and wait for some type of a response. And our default probe is SNMP traffic. If we don't get a response with SNMP, then we just do a ping echo, and we can tell if that device is up or down. So for this mail server, if you see down here the probes that we're using, one of those is SNMP traffic, and that one's okay. But we also have another probe on here, and it's our host resources probe. InterMapper ships, I don't know, probably over 100 probes, and you can also create your own. It's pretty easy to create a custom probe. If your device is SNMP enabled and it has it has a MIB file with what it's collecting, the data that it's collecting, typically what we can do is import that MIB file and create a custom probe within InterMapper. So for our mail server, we are also monitoring disk usage. So the disk usage for the D drive on this server is at 84%, and it exceeds our 75% threshold. So if I open this up, I can see the detail of what's going on with this server. So up here we've got our device status, SNMP traffic. Down here we've got the host resources information, number of users that are logged in, number of processes that are running and loaded on that server, the amount of memory in the description for the server, and then down here we've got the detail for each of those each of those drives that we're monitoring, and you can see the percent full. Any of these fields that are underlined, you can create a chart, like the interface chart I showed you. So here I've got a chart for this storage. Storage, we're also monitoring every 30 seconds. You can see it's been pretty flatline, and I think it's been up at that 85 mark for a long time. But if this was something you needed to keep a closer eye on, you could put this up on the screen as well, and it would refresh every 30 seconds. Let's take a look at a couple other views that we've got. So this is the map view. And also up in the left corner, we've got a couple other views of these same devices. So this is the list view, and this gives you a little bit more information. So these are the same devices, and I'm sorted by the status over here on the left-hand side. But you could sort by any of these columns that you wanted to. So this is the condition. These are highlighted. It's going to give you the detail on that condition, when it was met, the previous condition, the previous time, and then the probe type. So here's where you can see I'm using SNMP traffic for a lot of the devices here. I think I've got, here's our host resources. This is on a different server that I'm using. We also have table view. And so if I go in and take a look at that status, that's going to give me a little bit different view. This is a sonic wall. This is a firewall. And if I want to go in and take a look at the interface table, I can view that right from here as well. So we've got, and I'll show you a couple different types of probes that you can use. So SNMP traffic is our default. If that's not available when we're building the map, then we just do a ping echo, but you can customize that. Over here then we also have the IP address for all those devices that are on this map. This little red icon over here, then this is the alerting. And so we have a list of different types of alerts that we've got in our notification list. Let me show you how we can edit that as well. So you can add any different type of notification that you want, and then you can add the time that you're available or not, or the time that you want that, device to be alerted if there's an error. And then these are the different, here's our, we can run a script, here's our Splunk log, here's our email, and then one of our mobile phones. And so I can set, for each of these different devices, I can either, set a default, or I can set specific types of alerts for specific devices. So whoever's supporting those devices, that's who you can notify. Let's take these off before we start getting a bunch of emails that we really don't need. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the other probes that we've got. I'll go into this sonic wall. I believe this is the one that we're using the interface table. I'm going to use a different option though. Instead of the status, I'm going to go into the info window here. Now again, this is information about this device, the type of device that it is, any SNMP information we can get. Here's where you set the probes. So this one is using that table viewer, and if I open that, these are all the different data points that we collect in that table viewer probe. Up here at the top, this automatic, this is the one that we use to begin with when we're building a map. And again, we use SNMP. If we don't get a response, we'll just do a ping echo. Down here, we have some specific SNMP devices or probes. Here we have some probes that are specific to some vendors, Juniper, Cisco. And this is one that I like. This is a UPS device. So these are all different UPS devices, and most of them have a MIP file that we were able to import and create a custom probe for that device, which is something that you can do as well. So on this UPS device, it's going to set an alarm if the unit goes onto battery or if the battery needs replacement. And also we can monitor the temperature of that battery, and it's all customizable. Down here you can set the temperature limits and when you want to receive an alarm. We also have a bunch of different server probes that you can use. FTP that you can monitor, HTTP, which we're monitoring a couple of websites on our map. Your mail server for different protocols, etc., different types of multimedia. Wireless devices you can monitor, as well as we've got some WMI probes that are built in for your Windows servers. So if you want to be able to monitor services to make sure that they're up, make sure you can connect databases, etc. You can use all of these built-in probes. So whatever it is that you want to monitor for, well, here's a good one, this Centurion. So this is a little temperature monitor that we've got set up in our New Hampshire office. And as you can see, we've got some pretty high and pretty low warnings. And that's what this guy is down here. And so if we go in and take a look at the status, we can see the temperature probe. We got some high humidity going on up there in New Hampshire, as pretty much as in the Midwest as well. So you can monitor and be alerted based on any of those settings that you set. A couple other views from here. If I right-click, I've got a Layer 2 view. So when you build a map, you get like a Layer 3 or kind of a logical view of your network. You can enable Layer 2 at the map level. And then I'm going to see the actual physical connections for those devices. So I highlighted my Sonic Wall firewall. It brings up the IP address for that guy, and it's plugged into this 3COM switch. This is the port that it's plugged into, the MAC address for that device, IP address, etc., VLAN, and then the NIC manufacturer. Down here, so I've got endpoints up here, and if I refresh this, I will see, whoops, now how did that happen? There we go. So now I'm looking at all the different endpoints that I've got on this piece of the network. Down here, I've got my switch-to-switch connections. So this is how my backbone is put together. And then over here, I've got a window so I can filter what I see over here on the right. So let's say I do just want to see what's on this 3COM switch. I can just highlight that. Now I can see all the ports that are being used on that switch. I can also see the ones that are available. And again, you can filter right down to individual manufacturers if indeed that's what you'd like to do. So Layer 2 is great for troubleshooting and finding out where those devices are. Now the other view that I want to show you is the net flow. So this little badge down here means that this switch is configured for as an exporter for net flow data. I've got a few exporters available. I'm just looking at the one. We're looking at a 15-minute chunk of information, and it updates every 3 minutes. And again, all of that is customizable. But what you can see here now is who's using up the bandwidth. And if I click on something up here in this chart, it will highlight. I've got the top 25 talkers down here, and it's going to highlight who's using that bandwidth, what their IP address is, and the total size of the number of bytes that are going through there based on that chunk. So any of these is going to give me the detail down here. So we've got our top talkers down here. Down here on the left-hand side, I can also see the top ports. So I can see what service is being used for that traffic. And then also top sessions. This is kind of over history. It's sorted by the total bytes, so I can see who's using that, who's using up that bandwidth. And I can see the server, the client, total bytes, the exporter that's being used. So this is a switch, and then the version of NetFlow that we're using. So lots of good information here about what's going through your network. Now, if I wanted to get in and drill in and look at just this minute, I can just highlight here, and that's going to give me the actual detail for, what is it, 1016 to 1017. So now I've got an even more detailed view of the traffic and who's causing it. And we store that data in our database so that you can report on it as well. So let's create a map. So I'm going to create a new map. A number of ways to do that. I'll put my name on it so I know that it's mine. There are some good videos on our website to kind of help you get started. And there are a number of ways to create maps. So auto discovery, you just tell it a place to start, put an IP address in or a host name, and it will start scanning all the subnets and routers for devices that are attached. I'm going to use a manual entry. I kind of want to control where InterMapper goes, and I'm just going to do a one subnet range. So again, you put in the host name or the IP addresses and add them to a map. And here too, you can add anything to the map. It doesn't have to go discover anything. Also, if you've got all of your IP addresses or devices in some type of a spreadsheet, we can import a file into InterMapper and put them on a map that way. So I'm going to create this new map. So one of the things that InterMapper does really well is sets up a bunch of defaults for you. So now if I go to map settings, it's going to show me that it's pulled down from the server. So you install InterMapper on a server and it will set a bunch of defaults for you. And that's what I'm going to use for this map. If 3 packets are lost in a row, then I would consider a device down. Here we've got the limits for interface errors, short-term packet loss, and response time. And again, all of these are customizable. But to get up and going quickly, you might want to just use the defaults. Traffic thresholds, same thing. Here are the defaults for the traffic thresholds. The size of the lines is an indication of the amount of traffic that's going through that interface, either in frames or bytes per second. And then we also have default notifiers. So I'm going to just use those defaults. And now I'm going to insert a network onto this map. And this is just the zoom down here on the right side. I'm going to make that auto so that makes it a little bit easier to see. Highlight this network and tell InterMapper to go scan. Now I can scan for all active devices. You may not want that. Maybe you don't care about endpoints. Maybe you just want SNMP devices or just named. I'm going to go with all active because this is not a very big segment. So as long as this oval is purple, that means it's in discovery mode. And it's sending out an SNMP GET request and waiting for some type of a response. Once it gets a response, it sets the probe at SNMP traffic or ping echo, and it just keeps on building. So we can see it in this map view. Also, if we go to the list view, so this is going to show us the devices that it's found. All these little blue question marks means it's waiting for some kind of a response. Using our automatic probe hasn't gotten anything back yet. But over here you can see a lot of these are SNMP traffic. Most of these are just ping echo. They're just endpoints. They're not SNMP enabled. So we're just getting that ping back. So it's putting them on the map. Also, you can also see up here, we're also starting to get some errors. That we've got some short-term packet loss up there, and we've got some links down on our phone system down there. If I go back to the map, it's going to show me that. You're also going to start to see the traffic. So the lines for the interfaces are already starting to move, and that's going to give you an idea of where your traffic is coming from. Now I'm going to give this just a second. It's still discovering, but I think it's just about done. When it's done, it's just going to turn white again like the other ovals that are out there, and then I'll show you how you can kind of format this so it's a little bit easier to see. So if I just go to Format, Arrange, and I change that to Arrange Organic, it's kind of laid this map out by the networks. Make it a little bit bigger. Here you can see I've got a couple other networks that are attached to this one. We've got traffic going out there. What I could do is I could right-click on this oval and say scan this network, build that onto this map if I wanted to do that. Or I could take one of these and copy and paste them on a new map and have individual maps for each of those networks. However you want to be able to organize your maps. You can also format the icons. So again, we ship a couple hundred different type of icons. Some are specific to Cisco. Some are kind of generic. You can use any JPEG or PNG file here as well. And I'm going to just change this guy. Oops, I want to move that. Change this to a wire. Lay this out. I'm not very graphic, but I'll get it out there for you. And then I can change let's say I'm going to highlight a bunch of these, and I can kind of move them around so I can format the alignment and distribute those across that line. Makes it a little bit easier to see. You can also format the labels. which my default labels got a little bit crazy. Typically the smart name, so we have the smart name, the address, and the probe type. I think we can get rid of those too. We can make this bold, we can make this bigger, and we can format that however you want to. Also, change the icon for the different devices that are out there. And again, you could highlight a bunch of them if you wanted to change a number of them. I'll make this some kind of a switch or router. Put that on there. So you can, you can format your map however you want to, make it look good, put it up on the big screen. But even while you're still building it and customizing it, it's giving you good information here. It's letting you know the status of this device. It's up, but it's got some packet loss going on. And now you could go in and you could do a set, and I could set the probe. So I could change the probe from ping echo to something else. Actually, I probably can't if it's just a ping echo, but you could add other probes, create a group, add other probes. And now that I've got this other map, so this is my PAT demo map 2, I can also put it on my master. So here I've got the list of all the maps that we've got out here. So this is our remote access client. So it's just a client that I've got installed on my PC. Gives me access to all of our different InterMapper servers out there and all the different maps. So I don't have to remote into those servers. I can do it right from my desktop. And I will take this PAT demo map 2, and I can just drag it onto this map. And I'll put it up here, and I can attach it. I can attach it. Bear with me a minute. I lost my little attach. And I can look at this shows me on this map that I've got one device and alarm, and now I can double click on here and I can see the detail for that map. Stinker. All right, so that's kind of the big picture of InterMapper. Questions or comments? Don't see anyone dialed in, so you can certainly send me some questions over in the chat. We have a 30-day free trial of InterMapper that you can download from our website so that you can get it up and running and see how it's working for you. Also, during that trial period, you're welcome to use our support. You can email them at support@intermapper.com, and we will be happy to get you up and running and get you started. All right, well, you're welcome. A couple of good thank yous in the chat. Well, thank you for joining us. All right, Joseph's got a question. I'll just hang out here until he gets typing. Again, if I don't have an answer, I know a lot of people that do. We've got some great technicians that work with the InterMapper product. These are the email addresses for your sales reps. We will be following up with you after today's session. I have a link to the recording